Hi guys, Patrick here again. Just making another video quickly whilst I've been at it. Answering a question that you could say it's almost a quote old age question, but it's a question that lots of people ask. And the question is, should I take and get my CompTIA A+ certification if I'm starting out as a technician, or if I'm in my first, say, 1 to 3 years as a technician after leaving university, school, apprenticeship, etc. It's an age-old question, but the answer is quite simple in my opinion. The answer is yes, you should take it. For those of you that may not know, CompTIA is the Computer and Technology Industry Association, and this is a worldwide vendor-neutral body that has different certifications to help people in their careers as technicians. Now, CompTIA has certifications designed for people who are security experts, network engineers, data specialties, project specialties, and various other things. But the one that you may have heard of, and the one that's most important for this video, is CompTIA A+. Now, this is something that I did when I was 19, when I was an apprentice, where in the UK, the government was funding the cost of the training and the cost of the exam. I think we were allowed 1 or 2 attempts at the exam, all by the taxpayer. So for myself, it was actually free. Now, I've had this certification since I was 19. Yes, it does expire every 3 years for a mixture of reasons, but I personally still think that you should get it. Now, the reasons why I think you should get it would be, one, employer gratification and gaining trust from them. They're going to look at this and think, right, we've had other people come in who will come to A+ certified, and they're familiar with when we mention RJ45 or SATA or 802.11 or DDR4 or SODIMM and so on, and they understand what we're talking about, and they're capable of going off and resolving those issues and handling those types of queries that come in, or those types of support issues that they may run into. Now, this certification really is the most ideal certification to start out with in your career. Reason being is that you're going to get broad exposure to a lot of different things, such as hardware, operating systems and operating system fundamentals, networking fundamentals, cloud fundamentals, basics of how things like mobile devices work, basics of how DHCP and DNS work and so on. And they're the sort of things that, as a technician, when somebody says them to you, you're going to need to know them, and you're going to need to know what they're talking about, and you're going to need to understand what they do. Now, I personally remember when I took this exam when I was 19, I had a certain amount of exposure prior to being an apprentice, from just watching other YouTube videos, especially people like Linus Tech Tips when he used to build all these computers. But I also had a certain amount of exposure just because I was quick at learning things in IT, and I was part of a generation that I think was exposed to technology the most as kids, and therefore it was kind of put in our DNA, and as we grew up, we found it easier and easier to take things in. But once I had this certification, I had a lot less of a worry in terms of thinking, once I had it, I was much more relaxed, in the sense that if I saw a laptop blue screen and it mentioned something about BIOS diagnostics, then I would know what that actually means. If I would pick up a laptop, I could probably identify and name all of the ports on each side of the laptop, and I could probably, if I took the back of the laptop off, I could start to identify all of the parts inside and what they do, and how they interact with each other. Same with operating system fundamentals. When I started hearing the people I was working with as an apprentice talking about things like ping and ipconfig and DNS and DHCP scopes and all these things that were on that A+ exam started to make sense, and it was almost as if I could start linking all these dots together. When I had that, plus the actual certification itself, I can remember coming out of the exam hall thinking, okay, right, I got it now, in the sense that I felt like I had gone across that first leap in my career where I had a good understanding, not brilliant, but good understanding at least of lots of different things, and I had a lot more confidence because of that. Not necessarily from having the certificate saying you've passed the exam, but from being able to almost test myself and prove to myself that, yeah, I do know what this thing means. So if you are thinking about breaking into the IT technician career, or if you're a person who's been working as a technician for maybe a couple of months or a year or two, and you're thinking, what could be good to do to improving my CV, improving my prospects, I strongly recommend CompTIA A+. Even if you're in the industry for a year or two. If you've been in the industry any more than about 2 or 3 years, I would probably recommend doing something like one of the desktop operating system exams. So the Windows 10 exam now, or there'll probably be a Windows 11 exam, not too long from now, because Windows 10 is going to be retired in 2025. But I would really recommend getting underway with your CompTIA A+. I will put a video link, I put a link in the description for this video to Professor Messer's playlist for CompTIA A+, and he is by far the best IT instructor I've ever come across. Fantastic teacher, doesn't ramble on, keeps things really, really simple, and does a fantastic job explaining it. The other thing that I just want to talk about in relation to this exam, and this is more because one of the big problems, or not problems, but one of the big questions that's tossed around a lot in our industry is, if I want to take the technician route, or lots of careers in IT, do I need to go to university and do a computer science degree, or a degree in cybersecurity, or a degree in mathematical formulas for how computers work and things? The answer really is no. The reason for that is that as much as there are academic people who do lots of research about how we can improve cameras on people's phones or CCTV so that they can identify people that are under the watch list from the FBI or MI6 or whatever, that's something that computer scientists do because they write algorithms that help the computers identify what this person looks like and how to find them. However, our industry in IT is always changing, and there are certain products and systems that we stop using and they get replaced by newer ones. And that can happen really quickly in the space of between 2 and 5 years. Some of the stuff that I learnt in my A+ exam, it doesn't exist anymore, or it's very, very rarely used. Things like IDE hard drives, which you can Google, or you'll be able to relate to if you remember those days. The other reason is that the CompTIA A+ exam, especially for things like hardware and operating systems, it's only going to teach you what you need to know because it's aimed at technicians. A good example of this is that you have to learn all the different types of cables and all the different types of data cables inside the computer and what we would use outside the computers. I chatted to one guy who did computer science at university, and he told me he had to write an essay and do a research project about the history of the Molex cable, which is the cable that we have in power supplies. And my first thought was, I like what a Molex cable did when I was doing my CompTIA A+, and I've never really had to deal with them very much anyway, and I've never ever been asked in an interview or anywhere else about the history of the Molex cable. And in some way, he pretty much did agree with me, because there was literally no value in knowing the history of the Molex cable and who invented it and all the different iterations they went through before they had something that actually worked. It sounds a bit strange because a lot of careers and a lot of jobs these days, you have to get years and years of training, especially things like law, medicine, financial services, actuarial science, all that kind of stuff. But for IT and technology, our industry is a bit different, where everything is constantly changing every couple of 5 years, or 2 to 5 years as a rule of thumb. And that's why I think maybe if you're a person who's finishing school and you're thinking about taking the technician route, then start doing your A+. If you're at university and maybe you're between years 1 and 2, 2 and 3, or at the end of your 3rd year and you think about taking the technician route, I would suggest looking at getting your A+. The requirements for taking it is just that you just need to either take it online or take it in a testing centre. Professor Mesa has details about this, and it's all on the CompTIA website as well. It's not something where, like, you're doing an MBA where you have to have previous certifications and results of X, Y, and Z. You don't need that. Anybody can do it. So that should answer your question of, do I need to do CompTIA A+, or should I do CompTIA A+? You should have a much better understanding of it. I personally think you should. You'll get the benefits from it. You'll much better recognition and comfort from your employer, giving them peace of mind. It will also help you get your foot in the door in your early years of IT career, which are really, really important. And again, it's a great first certification that gives you enough of an understanding across a broad range of subjects before later on in your career, where you're probably going to be doing more specific things, where you have a deep dive in networks, or a deep dive in security, or a deep dive in cloud fundamentals and things like that. So that brings it to the end. Let me know if you want something else or something else useful, and I will plan to post another video very soon. I will see you then. Thank you very much.